Hello everyone and welcome to the final assignment walkthrough. I don't normally do this, but I received some really great questions and some great ideas for seeking clarification that I thought would be helpful to the whole group. So I thought I would just quickly record a lecture just to go through step by step all the different pieces of the assignment to make sure everybody feels really confident and comfortable as they work on it this week. And it gives me a chance to share the answers to the questions that people sent through in the last week or so. So what I want to do for this is I want to start by just actually going through the assignment description, and I also have two examples from previous semesters ready to illustrate some of the ways that this assignment can be done in a really organized and successful fashion. And I also want to review just a couple of key terms that I want to make sure everybody understands moving into the final assignment, and also just as a way to wrap up the course so that you feel like you are walking away with a really strong understanding of goals, tactics, metrics, and then of course email campaigns. So we're looking at this final assignment, and we're going to be using the exact same business we used for your KPI assignment. And the reason for this is because we're looking at this assignment as like an extension of the second one. And also just like as if you were to be working for your own business or an agency you're working for, or the company you're working for, you'd have to be doing, more than one task and more than one project in the time you're working there. So we want you to still be in that frame of mind of thinking about that one business that you started with. And also because there's a sense of comfort now that we've put together goals and tactics and KPIs and metrics, and I'm giving you feedback on them. So I'm really hoping to see that that feedback is recognized and shown in your final assignment. So the first question is, what is the purpose of your list? So immediately I want to switch to one of my examples from a previous semester. So the purpose of your list can be very simple and to the point. I'm really not looking for too much elaboration on any of these questions. We really want to get down to the point because we're imagining we're communicating in the workplace, and even if you work for yourself and alone, you don't need to elaborate to yourself why something needs to happen. You should be able to explain what it is and why it needs to be done in a sentence or less. So here's an example. So what is the purpose of your list? Just so you guys know, I hid the company names for both of these assignments because it is where the students work, and I didn't want there to be that kind of information shared, even though you wouldn't know who they were. It just felt more comfortable for me to just remove any sort of clues of who they work for. Anyway, so sorry. So what is the purpose of your list? By curating a list, we can build a bigger client base, which helps work towards increasing our sales. Very simple. This company, as the example, is a furniture wholesaler that occasionally does dates where they allow the public to come shop there, but mostly their target demographic and clients are all interior designers or buyers for bigger companies. So in the purpose for her assignment, all they were looking to do was build a bigger client base, and by building a bigger newsletter list, they could continue to send out more deals and more information to get people through the door. But you don't need to explain all of that to me. Like, all I need to know is this, that you're creating a list in order to build a potential bigger client base. That's all I need to know. Because the rest of the assignment, as you go through, should be telling me more and more. And we'll get into that in a minute. So when we go back to the next question, so what are your list building tactics? Make sure these tactics are CASL compliant. I want to use that example again because it was just very well put and very simply put. First question too is that, so why are we even talking about building a list? That's because a big part of email campaigns is, of course, growing that base of people that are going to be looking at and opening your newsletter and your email campaigns, but also because your email campaign is intended to be a conduit and a connection to potential customers, clients, whatever the case may be. So your goal should always be to continue growing this list. Of course, you're going to want to communicate with your existing subscriber list, but you want to try to reach more and more people. Now, in some cases, that could mean that just based on the type of business that you're working with, your list is only growing when you get new clients. So here's an example. Let's talk about a dentist office. Maybe if you're working for this dentist office and you're managing their marketing, your company's only communication is communication goal is to increase ongoing communication with your existing client base. So let's say the goal is your business goal is a 15% increase in repeat business in 2019. In order to encourage that repeat business, you want every new customer that walks through the door, or client, sorry, or patient, to walk through the door to opt in as a subscriber to the newsletter so that you can send them emails throughout the year, reminding them of services that they should be getting or they could be interested in. So in that example, maybe you're not running a social media campaign to build your list, you're running a client communications based program to try and get people to subscribe to the newsletter list. But either way, you need list building tactics in order to make that list grow. Now, in the example that we have here of the furniture company, we have an opt-in campaign. So create an opt-in campaign with current email list and request permission to continue sending emails to them or give them the option to be removed from the list. Now, at the time of this, the new CASL compliance laws had just come out. So this was very timely, this tactic, because we talked about it quite a bit, because it meant that everybody was going to have to go out and recontact their list. So we allowed at this point for that to be a tactic. I don't think that should be a tactic now, because that should already be done. And any new potential subscriber should have already opted in. But this is just something timely that, based on what was happening when CASL had first come out, we needed to have this discussion. So email link, add a mailing list sign up link to all employee email signatures so anyone that wants to be added can sign up at their discretion. So this is great that this company had a lot of sales staff, and this I learned from her previous assignment, so that sales staff could all have this link to encourage people to sign up for the newsletter, or they could tell people there is a newsletter and encourage them to sign up. Promo offer. Promote on Instagram. If you join our mailing list, you can receive 10% off your first order. It will require email sign up and include a request for consent to receive future emails. So 2 things with this one. This is a great example of what can be done on other platforms to grow your newsletter list. So sharing your newsletter list on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, whatever platforms you are active on. Adding an incentive in order to encourage people to sign up is always a great way to make it happen. But then also she spoke to CASL compliance. So they need to sign up with their email, and they need to confirm that they consent to receive the future email communications. See how simply that was put? It's clear to me that she understands how to incorporate and have an ongoing awareness of CASL to make sure that she and the company she's working for are not going to get into any trouble. Very clear, very simple, just straight to the point. Perfect. Actually, I'm just going to quickly minimize this because it's getting in our way. We'll get back to it in a second. So next question. So will you segment? If so, what are your segments? So we talked about this in the email campaign lectures, but let's review it again really quickly. So segments is when you have a list organized by different categories, and you determine what those categories are. For some people and companies, you're going to want to segment by location. It could be by age, demographic, all these different things. In this case, what I really liked about this example was, like I mentioned earlier, it's a furniture wholesaler, which means that the client base that they're working with here is a combination of interior designers, furniture retailers, and then occasionally they have dates where they open up to the general public. So her segments are going to be interior designers, furniture retailer, and general public. Now, what could have been great here is if she quickly summarized when building the lists how they would clarify that segmentation. And by quickly, I mean like within a sentence. So that would maybe be the only thing missing from the segmentation line. So maybe when it's an opt-in, they have to opt in saying they have to click that they're an interior designer and then say that they opt in. If they're a furniture retailer, and then clicking to opt in, and the general public. Now, to her credit, the sales staff and her coworkers would know who's who. So if she was asking people to help her organize a list based on their existing communications and to ask them if they would opt into the newsletter, they would probably already know some of that data. But moving forward, I would have liked to see how she was going to segment those options. So if you give me a segmentation idea and it's vague in the sense that I'm not entirely sure how you would segment and you haven't clarified it, you will lose marks in this section. So in this case, I didn't get an answer of how she was going to segment these 3 categories, like how she would know who belongs where. So she did lose marks. So just keep that in mind. So if you are coming up with ideas that, it'd be great to do it this way, but you haven't looked into if it's possible or not and how you would execute it, then I wouldn't include it for the purposes of the assignment. Or if you could summarize for me in a sentence how it can be done, then that works for me too. Will you implement automation? What's the plan? So this is an interesting one because it depends on, again, what your goals are and what kind of communications you're going for. Like we talked about in the lectures, automation, actually from, I guess, like the first lecture, automation could be so helpful to us in so many different ways. But one of my favorite ways is the ability to schedule content. So if at minimum your only automation is that you're going to use scheduling so that you can write the content in advance and schedule the date, you don't have to worry, that is enough for this section to say that you are implementing automation. Automation also can apply to segmenting. It'll do it for you. These types of details, think those things through that it could help you produce, right? For others, it might make sense that you're doing, if you have several list building tactics that it's being pushed out onto other platforms and pulling back in, you should be considering automating a welcome email. That's a really great way to instantly build a really strong connection with a new subscriber. So if one of your ads reaches me, Victoria, and I subscribe, what happens immediately after? Do I receive a welcome email that day, within the week? That type of thinking is what we're looking for. Same goes with drip campaigns. For some of you, depending on the business you're working with, drip campaigns make a lot of sense. Reminder, drip campaigns mean that it's a scheduled series of emails that is set off based on when the person subscribes, and then they receive this exact set of emails in the exact same order. So that type of thinking is really important too. I need to see it. If you reply that you're not going to implement automation, I'm going to question why you're not considering utilizing a tool like MailChimp, for example, to simplify some of your work. If your list is small and you are not going to invest in a tool like MailChimp because you can't at the moment, that is actually a totally fine response. But if just for the purposes of the assignment, if you want to practice saying, like going through the process if it was automated, I would also just go for it for the sake of the assignment. And if it can't be done for you professionally at work, then that's okay. But in this case, I would try to work as if you can implement automation. So in this case, she actually went through some detail in terms of aligning the different tactics to a level of automation, which I really did enjoy reading. So for example, like she has it for the email link list building, she created an idea for having an automated email that goes through that says, thank you for joining our mailing list. From here on out, you'll be notified on any upcoming event sales and new items, which is really great because then people know what to expect when they see the email come through in the inbox, which makes it that much more likely they're going to open it. The promo offer one I really like too. So like we'll send out an automatic reply saying, thank you for joining the company, the family. Here is your code for 10% on your first purchase. Insert code here. See, super simple, to the point. I get a really clear understanding of what she's going for here. What she's trying to make happen is that as soon as people subscribe, they get their offer right away. And that's perfect. You don't want people waiting for their offer. It does create a bit of an odd brand emotional relationship. So tools like MailChimp make it really easy to set up that as soon as somebody subscribes, they immediately get the email with the offer. It's very simple. I'm a really big fan of MailChimp overall. So now we get into the actual campaign building part of this. So this part, I really encourage everybody to go line by line and make sure that you have acknowledged every single thing in this list. I got a really good question from one of you asking if there's a template for this assignment because I provided one for the last one. There isn't necessarily a template, but like I mentioned in a previous lecture, and other students have done this too, they've adapted the template from assignment 2 to work for this final assignment. So what I really want to see is everybody's comfort and ability in organizing all this data in a way that is very easy to understand and it's very easy to align each piece. You don't want me guessing which piece aligns to which piece. It's very rarely actually clear, even to like fellow marketers, because there's so many different options and directions that anybody could go in. So you want to make sure that you don't have me guessing what aligns to what, because if I'm guessing, it means I probably don't understand what goals align into what tactic and metric, et cetera, et cetera. So if we look at this example, what she did here was she actually combined the template and then her own little template that she was working with here. And then I have another example that actually completely transformed the template to work for her. So so this was a July campaign she was working towards. So that's her future month point right there. You don't have to have more than one goal. If it makes sense for what you're working towards to name 2 goals and you want the feedback, go for it. Even 3 goals, and you don't go over the page limit, of course, then go for it. So in this case, her goal was to increase sales by 5% from email campaigns during the month of July. So because we're speaking in this case to a campaign goal, not necessarily an overall business goal, you can get down to the specifics of naming that it's 5% increase in sales from this one campaign and how that's going to, and I'll just assume it's working towards the business goal because we're only talking about the goal of this campaign in this example. So it kind of changes our dashboard ever so slightly. But overall, it allows you the chance to just focus on making this goal happen for this one campaign. Actually, on this point, is a really good segue into some of those terms I wanted to review. So let's pause on going through these examples and review some of these key terms that we all have been working on this whole semester. And we want to make sure we're comfortable and confident with finishing up this semester. I'm just going to take a drink of water. So, I should have started with this. My apologies. So I'll come back to this at the end. But for now, let's review some key terms. So what are goals? Goals are what you're, in this case, in this very specific case of building, like coming up with goals for your marketing plans. Goals are what your tactics are working towards, not the tactic you want to accomplish. Why do I say this? It's because in marking the assignments, I noticed that people, a lot of you were getting it. You were giving me those goals with the percentage and the dates. And then other times you were just listing a tactic that was just something you wanted to get done. So here's an example, right? Like a good goal would be increase sales by 20% in the next 3 months. And you would align your tactics to this by saying, you're going to build your subscriber list. You're going to attend more events to, introduce the brand, let's say, and then you're going to run a social media ad campaign hitting people that are within the target demographic. And I'm just speaking about goals generally here. This is not specific to the assignment. It's just to build comfort on talking about goals in general. Those are your tactics. What I was worried about that I kept seeing was that, for example, on the social, let's say for like running an ad campaign on social media, people were listing that as a goal. So it'd be like a goal is to run social media ads. That can be a goal in terms of a task you want to get done, like a personal, professional, like my goal is to make an ad campaign happen. And you can say that to your coworkers and to yourself, but that's not what we're looking for in terms of aligning something quantifiable, like goals to metrics. So I guess unfortunately for the English language and probably several other languages, goal gets interpreted into all these different ways. But essentially, in this case, your goal is something that you can quantify that is a result that your tactics have made happen. So that social media ad campaign, if it encouraged, a 10% bump in sales, that is all working towards that end goal. You're looking for whatever that result was to reach that goal. I hope that helps clarify. But overall, just keep looking at these examples that I included in lecture 2, in the SMART goals worksheet in the assignment 2, and then looking here where we look at a goal and it says increase sales by 20% in the next 3 months. If your goals do not follow that kind of example framework where there's a percentage amount that you want to see increase or decrease and a time period, and the description of what it is that you're going to see change, then it probably isn't the right goal formula. So just make sure you're really focusing on that and focusing on those examples from lecture 2 and in here. And we'll get into, I'll do a quick review again of the goals from the 2 sample assignments to get everybody more comfortable. What is a metric? A metric is a standard of measurement. So just like a centimeter is considered a metric because it's a type of measurement, a standard of measurement, we are looking for the same thing, but on the digital end. So clicks, opens, sales, views, shares, likes, comments. Another thing I kept seeing, and I'm not totally against it, but what was happening is the bare bones were missing. So I kept seeing like clicks versus reach, but I wouldn't actually see clicks as a metric you were measuring against your tactic or against your goal as a KPI. So I really want to encourage everybody for this final assignment, go down to the basics. So looking at, I'll get into the KPI example, but you can't tell me that your metric is clicks versus reach if you haven't even told me that one of your metrics is clicks. And I'm going to want to see if you're going to do a versus example, it has to be like the most important one or two. It can't be that the entire list is made up of those versus examples, because then you're not actually looking at the specific metric that you've been working towards this whole time. So clicks has to be there if clicks versus reach is there. It can't be that you only include clicks versus reach, okay? So we're looking for these metrics that align to your tactics and to your goals that tell you that you've made it. If you're not even looking at the key one to tell you you've made it, you're going to end up missing it, or the people you're reporting to are going to feel like they're not getting the numbers they need to know, and it may come across like you're trying to hide the real result. So get down to the bare bones of what you're reporting. It'll help you feel like you better understand the connection to everything, but even further, it just simplifies the whole process for you, okay? So this actually is a good segue into the KPI section. So KPIs are key performance indicators. So KPIs are the metrics that are the most closely aligned with your business objectives, or in this case, a campaign goal. So if your campaign goal is to increase subscribers by 10% in 2019, one of, if not your only KPI, should be new subscribers, because that is the key indicator of whether or not you met your goal. So this is another one I felt like we kept missing, was that we have the goal, and let's use this example again. So increase subscribers by 10% in 2019. And then the list of KPIs would be all these other examples or all these other metrics like clicks, open rate, and then not a single one was the subscribers, because that's the one you really need to be measuring. If you handed me the list of those KPIs and you didn't tell me what the goal was, I should be able to guess what your goal is. So when you're working on this, when you're working on your dashboards and your strategies in the future, put your hand over or just backspace the goal and tell me if based on your KPIs, you could guess what your goal is. If you can't guess it accurately, and maybe you can even ask coworkers, friends, or family to do it for you to guess, but if they can't guess it or you can't guess it based on that list, it either means you have too many KPIs, which means that they're not actually telling you if you've met that goal or not, or you've completely missed the KPI that tells you everything you need to know. Because technically, all I need to know is if you've hit this new subscriber list or this new subscriber amount. So if I don't see new subscribers on the list of KPIs, I wouldn't know if you actually had met the goal. Unsubscribes would also be something that could be a KPI, because you want to know, in order to gain how many did you lose? But specifically, you need new subscribers on the list of your KPIs, because it is your key performance indicator. Okay? So let's go back to our examples and back to where we were on the assignment. So when we go back to this goal of the campaign and what are the KPIs for the campaign, I really wanted to stress that because I wanted that to feel really comfortable for everybody. And I want you to feel like, not just in doing this assignment, but when you go out and work on your strategies and your dashboards, that you have such a comfort in using this language that this is like no big deal for you, okay? So in this case, the goal is to increase sales by 5% from email campaign. So one of our KPIs would have to be sales. And that's just based on what we were talking about before. You won't know if you met the goal if you're not tracking the key performance indicator that tells you if you met the goal. Her other KPI is conversion rate. So this is conversion based on the email campaign. So that is a totally logical, expected KPI because she's trying to confirm that she's increased sales by 5% based on this email campaign. So she has to look at that conversion rate and compare it to all the other tactics that they're running as the company's marketing. And then open rate. So this one I'm on the fence about, And I think it works in the context of what her assignment specifically is. So you need to know that people are opening your emails in order to gain those sales. But it's also really important that, let's say if sales and conversion weren't high enough and then open rate was ridiculously low, you would know that your campaign is not working towards your goal. So sometimes a KPI is really important because it tells you what's not working well. And in this case, that's the way open rate is perceived to me. It's that if people were not opening this email and these two other KPIs were not performing, we would know it's because of the open rate. So if we look at, I have another example here. We're going to skip over her intro because it's quite similar. But here's the example where she took the template from the previous assignment and adapted it to work for this assignment. So I bring this up now because we're getting into this point where we have to mention goals and KPIs and goals and tactics. So I just want to show it really quickly. So here she had 2 goals. She had her aligned KPIs next to them. There's really no guessing for me of what aligns to what. Whereas in this example, oh no. Oh no, are you serious? Sorry, one moment, everyone. In this example, I had to assume that these aligned to all of them or which one they aligned to. So again, you don't want me guessing, more because you want to show me that you understand which metrics align to which KPIs, right? And tactics and goals. And I just realized she organized this in a funny way. I really liked her intro, so sorry for this section. It's more I wanted you to show, I liked the way she introduced the assignment. In this example, it better aligns line by line to what the description of the assignment is. So she went into her goals and KPIs, she went into her goals and tactics, and then tactics and metrics. In this case, based on the description of the assignment, she just went goal, KPIs, and then tactical and then she included her metrics for me, but then she went into her content plan and tactics a little bit differently. So let's use this example as our going line by line. So we have our goals here. She aligned her KPIs. I don't need to guess that she understood or not which one's aligned to which. And if we go into goals and tactics, again, going line by line of the assignment right here, what are your tactical metrics for this campaign? She just took the template from the last assignment just as further practice and proof for me that she understands how to align her tactics to her goals. And also in the case of the assignment or the example business that she was working with, she had a lot of different tactic ideas, and she actually reached out to me before she had done the assignment. She had a lot of different tactic ideas, so she had asked for some advice in terms of how to organize it, and she felt confident reusing the same template. So I definitely recommend to everybody, if you like organizing it based in the same way as the assignment 2, I would go for it. And if you're struggling to fill in all the gaps, I definitely recommend utilizing assignment 2's template. So we have her goals and her tactics here. And then again, the next line, her tactical metrics, she went tactic by tactic and then gave me all her metrics each time. So again, I'm not guessing, I'm not trying to understand what aligns to what. Testing. So testing is a very important part of the puzzle for all pieces of marketing. But in the case of email campaigns, I would say that it's significantly more important because you really only have like one shot when you send that email out. That open rate is very precious because that's how people get to the rest of the content. So you want to be testing subject lines. You want to be testing creative to make sure that it performs. And a lot of these platforms that offer automation and scheduling of your content also offer A/B testing of your email campaigns. So it's really important that I see here that you have thought through your testing opportunities. You maybe won't be able to execute on all of them, but I just want to see the thinking. I want to see that, in an ideal world, you could make this testing happen and you should try to make some of it happen. So these both examples were quite different from each other, and that just goes to show that depending on the business you're working with, your examples could be glaringly different in terms of how you would test. So in this case, she said, I will utilize testing by creating copies catered to each segment I'll create 2 copies for each segment and split the list in half, sending different copies to each. I will use different product images, change fonts, tweak the phrasing, and rearrange word placements. So in this example, based on what we learned about A/B testing, the goal is to try to change as little as possible between the 2 examples. So here, where she says like she's going to use all these different things, that would be problematic for A/B testing. What you want is to say, I'm going to send 2 emails out that are identical, but the banner color is going to be blue on one and red on the other. And there's only one difference. So this way, depending on the results, you could say, okay, look, clearly blue worked better to get people to click, but red, let's just say stick with blue. So blue got people to click, and that's the KPI that you were looking for. So clearly we should be trying to incorporate more blue in our newsletters. So in this example, it's a perfect example of how, if you're going to be testing, you want to limit the number of things that you're comparing to each other. My favorite thing to test for is subject lines, because I find that once people are already in the email, and you keep your email super simple, you can get them to engage in that next action, but you have to get them to open first. So I just want to see how you're thinking about utilizing testing, because there's so much out there that you could be doing. And the content plan. So I got some pretty good questions about this. This is a great chance to review, and then I, of course, will answer everybody separately and specifically in addition to this. So what is the content plan? Essentially, what I'm looking to see here is that you're thinking about how your email campaign content and potentially any other content is working together. So in this case, she organized this by having just the content plan for the email campaign. So she gave me the list of weeks and what the key focus of the campaign of the email is going to be, and a little bit of description of when it's going to start, what kind of content's going to be in there. Just fairly like high level and to the point. But I just want to see that you're thinking about a plan to get people to continue engaging with you. And then she also summarized really quickly any social media and web support. So this is one example where it's just very high level and to the point, showing me that she's thinking about how all these pieces work together. We look at the other example. Similarly, right, we have the content plan, January 1st email. So she gives me the date, showing new arrivals for 2019 with a coupon code. Social media all linked at the bottom of each email, as well as homepage website. So very high level, like this is like the goal of what I want to make happen. Other students, they created a table where they said, okay, it was like a social media row, and they said that they listed the type of content that's going to be there. So let's say we can use the furniture company example. So they would have like the one column that was each type of area that they were posting content, and then if it was social media, then on the right it would say, add social media ads, encourage people to sign up for the newsletter, content about new 2019 styles, and 20% off for signing up. And then maybe it would say, organic social media content pushing to newsletter to be the first to know about new styles. So just giving you a general idea of how all the content you want to post is working together. But also, if you're doing a drip campaign for an email campaign, I want to see, in the same kind of like high level fashion, what's the first email going to say? The second email, the third email, the fourth email, but very high level, like what the purpose of each email is. So if it's a drip campaign, the first email should always be the welcome email. The second email should be like, we're always producing more content on our blog, so go ahead and check it out. Maybe the third email is like, we're offering webinars next month. Do you want to join in? Here's all the webinars, free enrollment up until this date. And so I want to see that you're thinking, how is this all going to work together? And again, high level, a sentence or less describing each one for your content plan. If your campaign is very, very focused on email content, I would say try to spend this time just discussing what's in the email content, and then you can do a one-line summary of how social media is supporting, especially if they are just support. If it's not intended to be like a huge driver of the campaign goals or the list building, this can just be a one-line summary. So just, again, this does require just some analysis of your own and the information that you feel is the most important that I need to know to understand what you're working towards. So it's not one of those examples where I can say like black and white, this is how it needs to be. This is one of those examples that you need to decide what I need to know, as let's pretend like I was on your team. Maybe I'm your coworker, your manager. What is the information that you feel I need to know if this campaign's working and to know what's going to be happening? And then the last piece, write one of your campaign emails. I also use these two examples because in this case, the student actually tried to give me an idea of what it would look like. She apologized because it didn't format exactly how she wanted to. And if you're struggling to format, just let me know. I know how it is. I just want the gist that like I know the content you're including and what you're working towards. And I know that sometimes formatting fails us, so just let me know. So in this case, she showed me, what the email is going to look like inside her assignment. So it ended up being within the 4 pages. But then other students, they had a lot to get through, and they also just enjoyed designing their emails on MailChimp. So they sent me a link to the MailChimp email campaign. So I can show you how to, or on Google, maybe I'll find the link. I'll find the link for you guys to show you how to get that campaign email link. If you don't know, I'd also recommend asking each other and just perusing around, but I'll try to find the explanation. But here's an example where she's designed it in MailChimp and then just produced a link for me to get to see it in this way because it'd be too hard to get it to paste as well into her assignment. So she just really enjoyed the process and she didn't want to ruin the overall beautiful result that she had. So I just want to quickly review, let me just, my questions here. Okay, so let's just quickly go over what is the purpose and the goal of this assignment. So what we need to see, as in George Brown, is that you have an understanding on how to develop an email campaign and strategy and planning, and an analytics dashboard. So this is where like everything we've talked about this semester comes together. So what I need to see when I'm marking is that you get what it means to put together this strategy and this plan, but simultaneously that you understand how to report on the success of that plan. So it's really where this all comes together. And in addition to that, I do need to see that, high level, you have an understanding of CASL. So just like in that example I showed, I don't need for you to explain like in depth, how your tactics are going to include CASL. I just need to see this high level that like it will require email sign up and include a request for consent to receive future emails. See, like just very high level that you get it. I just can't see examples where it's very clear that this could go wrong. So here's an example. If the business you're working for attends a lot of events and sponsors a lot of events and people leave their business card, or the tactic is people to leave their business card, if the signage for that leaving your business card doesn't say that you consent to receive communication from us, and then you were following up and your first email to them is, do you consent to receive future communications? Then it tells me that you haven't thought through the CASL piece. If you just say we're just going to collect business cards, to me, like that could be potentially breaking the law. And I don't get a clear understanding that you know how to run this contest. Or this tactic. So I just need to see very high level that you're incorporating CASL and you're thinking about it and it's top of mind. So I think that that's everything in terms of going line by line through the assignment. Quick review that, it has to be a Google Doc. Your file name has to be named correctly. It's literally right here, how to name the assignment. 4-page limit, 12 is the maximum font. Just get to the point of the assignment. If you notice in these examples, I didn't change anything. I just downloaded it, and the only thing I changed was like if they included their business name. You don't need to do a header for me. You don't need to have your contact information there. That's why I want the subject line to have your name in it, because that's all I need. That to me is like, okay, I know that this is Victoria's assignment. Done, right? I don't need it in your actual document because I don't want you to waste the space that you have in order to get to the point. It doesn't need to be beautiful. You don't need to have big titles. We just want to mark what you're working towards. So in both these examples, they made it work in the 4 pages, whether they had their sample email or not included there. And if you are planning to send me a link to your sample email, please try to keep the rest of your assignment close to 3 pages. If it's a little bit over, fine, but I don't want to see that the result is that you've put in significantly more information that you maybe didn't need to include in that 4th page. So try to still keep it to 4 pages, and think of linking your email if it's not going to fit because of formatting reasons. So that's the way to think about linking. Okay, so I think that's everything I wanted to go through. One other quick thing I want to say. So these 2 assignments, I didn't show them necessarily because they got perfect. I showed them because there was really good insight into formatting. And that was really my main focus. I was trying to find ones that I really clearly liked how they formatted. So excuse a few times where like I'm trying to explain why that's not a good example, and sometimes that's also helpful. But the main point of these 2 examples was I liked the way that they formatted, and I liked the way that they answered the different questions and the breakdown. So that's what I was just trying to show here, is that it can be a combination of using the last template, and also just going line by line. And also don't forget to use the rubric, because I do mark very closely to that. And that's everything. So I hope everybody is having a good weekend. Looking forward to reading your final assignments. And let me know if there's any other questions. Please feel free to email me or message me on Slack or message it in the assignment discussions. Thanks so much, everybody, and have a great week.